The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. It is time for another Sandy and Toddcast, and this one is just kind of, it's kind of like the goulash of podcasts.
We're catching up on a lot of stuff and throwing some extra tidbits in there and some upcoming surprises.
Yeah, we got something really cool coming, and we're going to talk about it this week on the podcast. Season 9, Episode 5, a bunch of stuff. The Sandy and Toddcast is next.
Hey guys, it's me, Sandy.
And this is Dave, better known as #Poor Dave.
We don't always call you that. Anyway, in case you didn't know, Dave and I are part of a great new show called Empire Spirits.
It's where we hunt lots of ghosts in some of the most well-known bars and restaurants in central New York, along with a great cast
Of characters.
Yep, Bill Vinci, Michelle Klossick, Ryan Vinci, Lafayette Cunningham, and Heather Elias.
You'll be able to see each episode starting this fall on Facebook and YouTube.
Just like our Facebook page, Empire Spirits CNY, to keep up to date on the latest.
But we can't leave you without thanking our sponsors because, well, without them, it just wouldn't be happening.
So a big thanks to the Stife on Varick Street in Utica, Bill Vinci and the Empire Plate, Utica Coffee Roasting Company, and the Sandy and Toddcast.
We'd also like to thank Northeastern Roofing and Construction, northeasternroofs.com, Labella Flowers, that's labellaflowers.com, and Independent Artistry by Dawn Marie, Independent Artistry by DMF.com.
And we can't forget licensed real estate person Paul F. Sacco, 315-525-1377 with Howard Hanna Real Estate Services, or Joshua A. Amodio with Priceless Inspections, Central New York's top choice home inspector since 2012, 315-525-8725.
Now, back to the show.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day, all while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast. And welcome back to the Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
He is Todd.
And this week it's all about a bunch of stuff. Not necessarily just one thing to talk about, but a bunch of things that we've got coming up. Some of it for the podcast itself, some of it for your little trip coming up. So
yeah, I'm so excited. All right, let's talk about that first because I'm really excited. This is Sunday. So this coming Friday, Dave and I and Spike are going to load into the car. So now we're in central New York State. We're going to drive about 5.5 hours south to the amazing Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And this is our third trip. This is Spike's first trip. He's quite the traveling dog now, just like his brother Jack was. And we're going to be heading down there for just a long weekend. But I'm so excited to be back because when I go to Gettysburg, Todd, to me, it is like coming home. I sometimes wonder if one of my previous lives was spent in Gettysburg. I don't know, but there's a feeling I can't really describe. I can't give it justice in describing the feeling I have when I come home to Gettysburg. So going to be heading down there. We should get down sometime in the afternoon on Friday. And it's a semi-working weekend for me, so I'll be doing a little bit of work, catching up on work. We're going to go over to the Gettysburg outlets. They have this cool store. I have to tell you about this store.
I have to laugh a little bit because when you think of Gettysburg, of course, you think of all the war and the battlefields and stuff like that. I don't know that you necessarily think of the outlet mall.
Oh, well, it gets even better when I tell you what the store is.
Oh, shit.
So there are a few clothing stores I'm going to go in and visit, but they have a store called Doe and Arrows. And it's cookie dough, edible cookie dough, and ice cream. And they have cheesecake and stuff. But you can get like any combination of them too, because I love edible cookie dough, even though it's like 8 gazillion calories a cup. I love it, and I don't eat it very often. So they have all kinds of flavors of that, and you can get combos, Todd. So you can get like a 2-scoop combo, a 3-scoop combo, and you can combine a scoop of their ice cream flavors with a scoop of their cookie dough or any combination of them. So I'm really excited about that. Dave, not as excited, but still looking forward to it. So got to do that because you don't see that very often around here. And so we're going to do that Friday and just kind of unwind and hang out. We're staying at a hotel this time instead of an Airbnb, which usually we stay at an Airbnb when we travel. But this hotel was free. We had points. So
got to use up the points.
I think it came to a total of like $6. So plus our pet fee. It's the Hampton Inn in Gettysburg. So we're going to stay there and it's going to be a lot of fun. And then Saturday, we're going to get up in the morning and we're going to kind of play it by ear. Get up in the morning. I'd like to go to the National Cemetery again. Of course, that's where Dave and I heard the cannon shots, the residual cannon shots. Oh gosh, it was 2008 when we heard those, was in the National Cemetery where the Gettysburg Address was given. And so we're going to go back and visit that and also drive around the battlefield, of course. Like I said, I want to go to Sachs Bridge again. I want to visit Devil's Den again, the Peach Orchard, you know, all the different places, Plum Run. It's interesting because, unfortunately, Little Round Top is closed for, they're doing some construction there. They're really making it even more tourist accessible there. And it's disappointing because I love Little Round Top. It is such a beautiful vantage point of the battlefield from up there. And Devil's Den is down below. And it's just so gorgeous, but we won't be able to get up there, unfortunately. It won't be open till sometime next year, but Devil's Den will be open, and we're going to go check that out. And then later in the day, I get to meet up with Deej from Diggin' with Deej. Now, I think we've had Deej on our show before. I've actually been on a few of Deej's shows. She does metal detecting, and she has a YouTube channel, and I'm going to put her YouTube channel in the notes. It's so cool and so interesting. But every once in a while, she kind of deviates a little bit from the metal detecting, and because she loves history as much as I do and you do, she'll deviate a little bit, especially at Halloween, and we'll get on and we'll tell some ghost stories, and we'll talk a little bit about paranormal investigation and stuff like that, because they are kind of linked together, obviously. And as a matter of fact, I was on either last Halloween or the Halloween before, and we talked about Gettysburg and all of my experiences with Gettysburg. So going to meet up with her and go back to the battlefield on Saturday evening, have a little dinner, go back to the battlefield and check out some places together. So I'm definitely bringing my equipment down. It's sure to be a lot of fun and really interesting. And then Deej is going to see if she can get permission on Sunday morning before all of us head out to do a little metal detecting near the Cashtown Inn, which, of course, is where Dave and I stayed in 2008. Now, in 2011, we took our camper down and we camped down there. But in 2008, we stayed at the Cashtown, and that's where I got those amazing EVPs. So she is staying in the same room, in the same suite that Dave and I stayed when we had all those experiences. And so it should be really interesting for her. So I'm
looking forward to finding out if anything happens while she's there, you know?
Yes. And Deej is very good she's very, what's the word I want? Like observing. She can observe really well. Her observation skills are great. And so she's ready. She's like really ready to do this. And I'm hoping that we can metal detect somewhere for a little while, even if it's only for a few minutes. We're going to kind of interview each other and do a little videos while we're together. And it should be really, really cool. So that's coming up. And then, of course, my friend Lisa, who used to be from up here where I live. She is an animal communicator and a psychic, and she moved down to Gettysburg about 4 years ago. Have not seen Lisa in about 4 years. And we're going to meet for lunch on Sunday. So before we head home. So that should be really cool. Really looking forward to it. It's going to be a really busy, crazy weekend, but really, really looking forward to it. So we'll see what happens. You know, of course, the battlefield itself, there may not be as much intelligent energy on the battlefield as people think. I think a lot of times people who aren't, I hate to say not as knowledgeable, but maybe don't understand how intricate it is down there. I think they may mistakenly think that some of the things that they see or hear are intelligent communication. I think there's far less intelligent communication on the battlefield. This is my third trip down, and literally every day, twice a day, morning and evening, Dave and I would drive around the battlefield when we go. I really feel like the majority of it is just a residual of what went on the battlefield. You have to remember that not only did the battle take place on the battlefield, but there were people living and working on that battlefield grounds every single day before the battle took place. There's a lot of bedrock underneath. Pennsylvania, anybody who knows Pennsylvania knows how rocky Pennsylvania is. Devil's Den itself is huge boulders of rock. And these rocks absorb energy over the years. So you've got the battle, you've got the absorption of energy, you've got the energy of reenactors on the battlefield. So you've got layers of residual energy on the battlefield. So, and throughout the entire town. I mean, the entire town is the battlefield, really. The outskirts, the town itself, everything is the battlefield. So I don't understand quite why I feel like I'm home every time I go there, but I pick up on that energy and I just go with it. And so just going to be really interesting. One more thing to talk about quick with Gettysburg before we move on is that I'm going to get to go down and visit. Now, everybody knows there's tons and tons and tons of markers and monuments all along the roads of the battlefield, in the woods, everywhere, that commemorate different military units and soldiers and you know, famous generals. And, well, there's two of them that I really want to visit. And one of them is a relative of mine. Now, I'm not a direct descendant of his. I haven't been able to find any direct relationship, but I do know that somewhere kind of off the main wing of my family, we are related, is General Henry Warner Slocum, who was very well decorated, very well known. He's actually buried down in Greenwood Cemetery in New York City. But we are very distantly related, but he has a monument, and it's quite a gorgeous, gorgeous monument. So I'm going to take some pictures of that. I want to visit that. And also, there was a Brigadier General Willard that Dave and I visited when we were in Troy, New York in June. We went to the cemetery, and I actually had, with my K2 meter, quite the conversation with him. And he had such an amazing story. And I'll share that in one of our future episodes, his story and how everything went. But I had such a great conversation with him through the K2. So I told him that when we go down to Gettysburg, we would go to his monument and we would visit with him. So I'm interested in seeing, Todd, if I can get the same response from him in Gettysburg, because we know that nobody is really stuck anywhere. They can travel. They have free will. If I can get some response from him at his monument in Gettysburg, and I got response from him at his grave in Troy, New York, doesn't that sort of lend itself to the theory that they can move wherever they want,
Sure.
whenever they want to?
Sure.
We saw that in Gettysburg on a Kindred Spirits episode, where they actually communicated in one episode with a certain entity, a certain energy, and then the same energy down the road, they communicated with him a handful of houses down. So we'll see. I want to see if anything happens. I would be really excited if it did. I'm not expecting too much, but it would be really cool and kind of lend itself to that theory. So that's Gettysburg for you. We'll have to see what happens. I'm also looking forward to some of those battlefield fries on Steinway Avenue. Just saying. All right.
I looked up Gettysburg because my whole life, you talk about Gettysburg, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not stupid when it comes to geography. Maps and all that kind of stuff have always been a very strong point in my education. But if you said, where's Gettysburg, I wouldn't be able to point it out on a map per se. So I went on and I pulled it up on Google Maps and stuff like that. And of course, there is the Eternal Light Peace Memorial that's shown there. Round Top is shown there. The Gettysburg Battlefield Historic District is there. Eisenhower National Historic Site. The Reenactment Field. And then there it is. The Outlet Shops of Gettysburg.
It's not big. It's not big. I've been there. It's not big. But it's really pretty and it's really well done. And I mean, you've got the big ones like Woodbury Commons down near New York City, which I've been to several times. I mean, those things are like cities. We were actually at, I think they consider it to be one of the biggest malls in America down in Florida near Fort Lauderdale, Sawgrass Mills. We were down there and that thing is like a city unto itself. These are far from a city. But they're cute and they're quaint and they have some cool stores and they have edible cookie dough. So count me in.
That's all that matters at that point.
That's all that matters. I try to behave myself with my eating because I'm diabetic. But, every once in a while, I reserve it for my vacations. So,
So what are we going to talk about today? What do you got?
All right. Wait, I just have to bring this up. Do you remember, speaking of me with food, do you remember last year when we came out there for vacation and we all went with Keith and Jay? We all went out to
Fat Joe's.
Fond du Lac and we went to Fat Joe's. And I had probably the best grilled cheese sandwich I've ever had in my life. And then the next day I had that gallbladder attack.
Yep.
That was awful. And here I'm trying to eat my best. And I went on vacation and ate a grilled cheese sandwich and that did me in. So, yeah. Anyways, all right. So today I just want to talk about a couple things. We're going to start this little series, this little mini series about some of the world's most unexplained mysteries. And I thought I'd talk about two of them. I found these on interestingfacts.com, and I thought I'd talk about two of them today. One of them because it's kind of tied to the whole aliens theme that we've been talking about. And the other one I just thought was pretty cool. So I'm going to kind of read it verbatim because it's kind of hard to talk about all of this, but I'm going to read about it. The first one is the Nazca Lines. Have you ever heard of the Nazca Lines?
No.
Okay. There is a desert in Peru called the Nazca Desert. And over the years, they have found these, it's almost like crop circles, but a little bit different. So let me read to you what the Nazca Lines are. It says a hummingbird, a monkey, trees and flowers. Why were more than 350 of these images, some visible only from the air, etched into the soil of the Nazca Desert of Peru? How were these geoglyphs created across roughly 200 square miles, beginning more than 2,000 years ago? What purposes did these lines and images serve? These are the questions raised by the Nazca Lines. Now, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the lines were carved by the Paracas and then the Nazca cultures over a period of more than 1,000 years. This archaeological enigma is the largest collection of geoglyphs in the world, and the meaning and purpose of the symbols has been a subject of debate since Spanish conquistador Pedro Cieza de Leon wrote about them in 1553. Although he initially described the lines as trail markers, and some do point to water or mark aquifers, speculation about their purpose ranges from the reasonable, the images serve astronomical and religious means, to the surreal, that the complex was constructed by aliens and served as an interplanetary spaceport. You have to look these up, Todd, and I'm going to see if I can find a cool link for everybody so they could look up. I mean, you could just go and Google the Nazca lines.
I did, and it just brings up tons of pictures. So if you want to see just like a ton of these pictures, NAZCA lines.
They're fascinating because, like I said, do you see what I mean? That they're kind of like crop circles in the idea of them, but where the heck did they come from? Now, we know that the people of Peru hundreds and hundreds of years ago probably created them, but why? Why did they do it? I get the idea of the whole idea as astronomical and religious means. Maybe they're like maps for them. But it also begs the question, do they have something to do with aliens? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, my first response is always no. It has something to do with something else, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about crop circles and then you think about hieroglyphics and you kind of combine the two in your mind, that's kind of what this stuff looks like. Like there's some things that look like maybe cats or maybe spiders, or some or large birds. You know,
they're very simple. They're very, very simple. I mean, I wouldn't expect, which is interesting because when you think about it, the idea of, let's say, the Egyptians building the pyramids is not simple. It's much more scientific and much more complicated than these would be on the surface. But again, it would have taken a lot of thinking, a lot of construction, a lot of scientific means, even crude scientific means, to get them to what they are. Mm-hmm. So it's just such a cool mystery. Like, will we ever know what it is? I mean, if you had said to me 10 years ago, aliens did it, or they were in communication with the aliens, I probably would have smirked a little bit. But now, 10 years later, with all this craziness going on with the possibility of aliens existing, is it a possibility? I mean, they've been talking about aliens with the Egyptians for years as well.
Well, I remember, you know, one of our favorite shows growing up, In Search Of, you know, would talk about the Aztecs and their pyramids and were they communication vessels for alien. I mean, people have been talking about this for a long, long time, and it's hard to understand exactly, you know, what these are all about. But it's amazing when you pull these open. And again, some of them look very, very well laid out, like almost like mirrors of one side to the other, like some of the birds and stuff. Some are a little bit more primitive, where it just looks like a child drew something, you know, like the child had some crayons at school and tried to draw the family or something. And, you know,
here's the thing to me, though. The fact that they are seen from the air.
Yes.
But from the ground, they just look like a maze of things.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you have to see it from the air to understand what it is. Because if the case were that they were just pointing to an aquifer or some landmark, why didn't they just make a straight line or make an arrow or, you know, whatever they needed to make in order to mark that spot? Why do you have to see it from the air? And these people supposedly had no way to be in the air at that point in time. So what's the explanation for that? You know,
there are some really cool designs. There's like a spider. That's really cool. There's like a bird of some sort. That's cool. And then there literally is like what looks like to me It looks like a family with maybe a dog or a horse.
Mm-hmm.
But then it looks like some sort of weird alien creature with things coming out of it, like a big fish kind of thing, but it's got,
Yes, that's a pretty well-known one, too, because that's what sort of spurred on a lot of the idea of alien communication.
There's another one. It's basically a figure of a body on the side of like a hill kind of thing. But again, it's got the big eyes and the oblong head. And it's like, is that an alien waving back to something in the air? Who knows?
Well, I was just watching, when I'm bored, I pull up all of these shows about conspiracies and stuff. But I was just watching a documentary not too long ago about the aliens, and there was a person, a very well-respected person, who basically said, if you think, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you think that the aliens have just been visiting us in recent times since, the 40s, you're crazy. They've been here for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. In fact, one of the theories is that the extraterrestrials, the aliens from other planets, are the ones that actually began our civilization, which would tie in a lot with the Egyptians and things like that. So there are experts out there, people who are very highly regarded, who are like, they've been around for hundreds and thousands of years. This is not anything new. So it wouldn't surprise me to find out down the road that those were means of communication. And what if they actually regarded the aliens as gods? We know that they worshipped gods. What if that picture that looks like an alien was actually to their god, or what they thought of as their god? It's just a fascinating kind of unexplained, unsolved mystery out there that we'll probably never know in our lifetime, Todd.
Right.
But it's just so cool to think about, That's part of the fun of these unexplained things. It's like the paranormal. We may never be able to get this kind of proof or that kind of proof and make everybody happy, but isn't half of the excitement of it just thinking about the possibilities of what it could mean or what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, it's super cool. So that was the Nazca lines. And like Todd said, you can Google them and come up with tons of pictures. And it's really, really neat. So I'm going to talk about one more because I thought this was kind of neat. This is called Hauska Castle and the Gateway to Hell. You ready?
Yep.
One of the Czech Republic's best preserved Gothic castles, Hauska Castle, stands on a cliff top surrounded by dense forests about 40 miles north of Prague. Built in the 13th century by Bohemian king Ottokar II, the castle subsequently passed between the hands of several aristocratic families. While it appears like a noble mansion from the outside, the structure has a number of peculiarities that have inspired spine-tingling folklore. It has fake windows, no water supply, no fortifications, and is far removed from any notable trade routes. It also had no known occupants at the time of completion. So why make the effort to erect a castle that serves no obvious purpose? I'd ask the same thing. According to historians, Hauska Castle was built by Ottokar II as an administrative center, yet local villagers might tell you otherwise. As the legend goes, the castle was instead built to trap demons, and it stands over a hole that is believed to be the gateway to hell, so deep that it's impossible to see the bottom. During construction, prisoners were offered pardons if they consented to being lowered to the bottom to document their findings. Reports of half-human, half-animal creatures climbing out of the hole were common, as were black-winged beasts that dragged people into the abyss. Consequently, the castle chapel was built to cover the supposed demonic gateway and to prevent evil from escaping. This, however, hasn't stopped claims of screams and scratching claws coming from the castle floors, making the site one of the most haunted places in Europe.
So
Houska Castle.
If you want to look it up, Houska. That's how you spell Houska.
Yes. Now, my thought process on this one is, if I was a prisoner and I was offered a pardon to go down in a hole, I'd go down in the hole and I'd make that the most exciting hole I have ever been in, because it would make them happy to know that there is something, you know what I mean?
So you're saying you make up a story? You'd be making up stories? I see.
I think they would make up stories. I do. I do think they would make up stories. I don't know that necessarily it's the gateway to hell, but obviously it could have some sort of energy attached to it and something going on with it. But as far as the gateway to hell, I don't know. Isn't hell kind of subjective and the idea of hell? So I don't know, but it's an interesting story. And if I were ever in the Czech Republic, I would go to Houska Castle. I don't know if they're doing tours or not, but that would be pretty darn cool.
It's interesting. The photos are interesting. If you like old, like castles and homes and buildings and all that kind of stuff, you'll enjoy it. It is interesting. There's photos of this big, it looks like a well, basically, but apparently there's nothing at the bottom of it. I don't know.
Maybe the guy was just crazy. Did anybody stop to think about that? He had a lot of money and he was just crazy. There were a lot of crazy people.
It very well could be. I do think, though, whenever you build something like this, all of the time and energy that goes into it, there's typically some energy in places like this because, so who knows, and if the will of it was to create something that had demonic or evil tied into it, maybe in the building or the conception of this particular building, it kind of got marked with that. I don't know. It's possible. Right.
It's possible. I think it's kind of funny that I'll be the first to say, well, I sure do think that there's probably aliens in the world, but a gateway to hell? Of course not. But, you never know anything anymore. In this world today,
that's true.
You never know anything. So if anybody ever goes to the Czech Republic and wants to check it out, let us know. We'll bring you on the show.
Okay.
We'll fly out here to hang out with us. So anyway, so that's our 2 unsolved world mysteries for this week. There's some other cool ones coming up too, so that'd be neat.
One of the things that we've tried to do at the podcast is over the years have some really great guests on, and we have had some outstanding people, people who we know personally now, who we didn't know personally when we started, people who we knew personally before doing it. Just some awesome interviews. And one of the interviews that we've always wanted to get was we wanted to interview someone who's been on a ghost hunting show. We've talked about this a long time. Some of these people are very easy to contact. Some of them are very difficult to get a hold of and want nothing to do with anything. So imagine our surprise when Sandy was able to reach out and line us up a great guest coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Should I say who it is?
Yeah, do it.
I'm really excited. So Daryl Marston, who was the co-lead investigator with Grant Wilson on Ghost Hunters. Jason wasn't on the series, but Grant was. And they did some really cool investigations. Daryl and I were chatting, and Daryl is going to come on the show. He has a new book out called The Horror of the House of Wills, and it'll be out in September. And I've always been fascinated with the history and the hauntings surrounded around the House of Wills. Now, the House of Wills is in Cleveland, Ohio, and I thought that maybe Todd and I were going to get to go out next month, but there's some other things going on right now. But he actually did a few investigations there, and actually had, and I'm not going to give away too much information, but actually had something attached to him there. And he wrote about the House of Wills. It's in a very seedy part of Cleveland. It has a long history of, I believe, don't quote me, but I believe Masonic activity.
I believe so.
Yeah. And also it was a funeral home for the African American community, Black undertakers and things like that at one point. And a lot of crazy stuff went on there, some rituals. So it's kind of a dark place, to say the least. And he wrote this book. And so Daryl is going to come on with us. We're going to hopefully be able to do a two-parter. We're going to talk to him a little bit about his life and his story and how he got on Ghost Hunters, and also some of his thoughts and ideas around paranormal investigating and that kind of stuff. And then we're also going to talk to him about his book, what led him to write the book, and also what the history of the House of Wills is really all about. So we're just so excited to have Daryl Marston from Ghost Hunters on with us in the coming weeks.
When I was, the first time I had heard of the House of Wills was when the Ghost Brothers went.
Yes.
And that was the first time that I had really ever heard of it, ever had a chance to see anything on the inside. And when you think of Masonic temples, a lot of times they're kind of over the top.
Yeah.
They're very lavish inside. There's a lot of architecture that's very interesting. And this is no different.
Right.
And again, it went from being this, I believe, as we said, a Masonic temple into being this funeral home, which is another layer of oddness to it.
Very much so.
But when you see, if you go and you look up House of Wills, you'll find a bunch of different places you can get more information on it. But there's some great vintage photos of when it was the funeral home. And I remember one of the rooms was very interesting. It had what looked like architectural clouds in the ceiling. And it was very interesting. When it was a funeral home, they used it as the coffin showcase room.
Mm.
But and now a lot of the building is starting to fall apart. But this one area with the clouds in the ceiling, it's very strange. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, think about it, Todd. Though, I mean, there's a lot of theories that revolve around the whole Masonic community idea. And we won't touch on those, but
I would like to one day, but I'll be honest with you.
I would like to.
I'm actually scared to.
I know. It's a little, I don't know. I feel like it's sort of like the Ed Gein property that you and Dave were telling me not to trespass, and I did it anyways. And, it's sort of like a hands-off kind of thing. The less you know, the better off you are sometimes.
Yep.
I did actually kind of tour a Masonic lodge once.
Me too.
I have, it is very interesting. I did learn a few of the rituals that they go through, and even if it's not associated with things that people like to, talk about with rumors and stuff, you have to remember that these men are doing these rituals over and over and over again. And there's different emotions that go on during these rituals, including fear, right? And some of the things that I heard during this tour were things that I would say most definitely would stamp energy into a location. And then you've got a funeral home. And you've got a funeral home in a really bad part of Cleveland where there are literally drive-bys. You've got the perfect storm for maybe some energy that's a little bit darker than other locations. So, it's a tough place. I first heard about it on a documentary one time that I was watching. And then the Ghost Brothers, like you, Todd, I really enjoyed that episode because you got to really see inside it and everything. Now it's a community. Apparently it's like a community place where people can go and have events, and there's like an art gallery there. And I was going to try and see if we could worm our way in at one point. I'm never giving up on that idea because I'd love to get in there, but plenty of protection there, I think, if you go in. So interesting. So we're excited to have Daryl Marston with us coming up in just a few weeks.
So apparently it, just so that we get some of our information correct. And again, we're going off what we remember from the shows we saw.
Right.
It was originally an opera house, a German opera house.
Oh, I did not know that part of it.
So, I mean, it goes back pretty far, and it's pretty amazing inside. For me, from somebody who just loves architecture, I see what the inside was like, and it's like, oh, I love that. So looking forward to talking to him. And I'll say this before he comes on, and then I'm going to tell him when he's on. What I liked about the reboot of Ghost Hunters when he was part of the team was that they were using new equipment. They were using fresh equipment. They were trying things that I had never seen done before.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really liked about that particular group of investigators was they really had respect for what they were doing, and they all had a real reason for doing it. It wasn't for fame. It wasn't to go out and get scared or to scare somebody else or make a big deal about something. They were all searching for answers that were deep within them. Yeah. And they did it from a very, very respectful place. I was just very impressed by that. And it's one thing that I thought that Grant always brought to the table when the original Ghost Hunters was on. It was always, one of the things he would say when he got to a location is, "Hi, we're here to help," or "How can we help?"
Right.
Like that was his thing.
Grant, I love Grant because Grant always came from that very genuine place. Grant had experiences that he couldn't explain, and he came from such just a genuine place. Like he truly wanted to understand, and that came through. And I think that was a great team for something like that because they all just had this genuine want to understand what was going on. Yeah. It's almost like if you watch that show, those episodes, it was coming through. It was really coming through that's what they were there for. And Daryl will tell you that he was not a TV person. He was doing investigations. I think he was doing a podcast. They reached out to him.
Yeah.
And he jumped on it because he said, these are my people. This is what I want to do. So it's going to be a great, great interview. Hopefully get 2 parts of it because I'd love to talk to him for quite a while.
You ready to get a card for the collective this week?
Yes.
All right. Let's turn to our friend Lorna. She's got one for us. And there's something special about this one. I'll explain if you don't catch it with our card of the week with Lorna. Let's check it out.
Hello. This week's card of the week for the collective is from the Breathe, Balance and Believe deck, which is by me. The message on the card is great signs will align. The signs and patterns around you are messages, not coincidence. Signs from angels or spirit or the universe can literally appear at any time. In the street, in the house, in the sky, even in your dreams or in the lyrics of songs. If you're experiencing some synchronicity with even the simplest of signs, please know that this is happening for a reason. Never be afraid to ask for a sign to guide you or to give you confirmation. The image on this card is a beautiful white fluffy feather, a classic sign for many of us. Actually, I have to admit, this feather is synchronicity in itself, as it's just like the one on my driveway waiting for me this morning. I'm wishing you a really wonderful week ahead and hope it's full of beautiful messages, signs and synchronicity.
Here's your card for the collective for the week ahead. I don't know if you noticed it, but she mentions the deck that she uses every week. And the deck she used this week is a deck that is actually her deck. She has created it, and I have one of my own that she sent me. So
I love that she sent you one.
And it's weird too, because she had pulled a couple cards for me the other day, and this came up in my reading as well. So I really do think that I think we're all in for something coming very soon. Something's on its way.
I've been feeling a little unsettled lately.
Yeah.
And usually when I start to feel unsettled, like, do you ever, and anybody can really relate to this, did you ever just feel a little off and nothing is going badly in your life, but just something just feels a little off?
Yep.
That's the feeling I've been having lately. And so I agree. I think something's coming. I don't know what it is. Not that psychic, but something's coming. I can feel it.
Something this way comes.
So, all right. Well, should we do our spiel?
Let's do our spiel.
You can find the Sandy and Toddcast on any of the platforms that you normally find your podcasts, including YouTube and Twitter. Be sure to like the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook to keep up on the latest goings-on, including each week's episode. You can also join our group, Stay Weirdos, friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, for more fun. Stay Weirdos is a safe place to share your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and random inappropriate memes without judgment. Sandy and Todd also have a podcast called the Empathecary Podcast. It's for empaths, by empaths. And if you know an empath, you might want to listen too. Find and like the page on Facebook. And finally, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure where to start, Sandy and Todd can also help with that too. Mindgarden Media is their latest project where the dynamic duo can guide you every step of the way in your podcasting journey. Editing, producing, and consulting is what they do. Like Mindgarden Media on Facebook or email them at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for staying weird.
So next week, you are going to be away, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to have an Empathecary podcast next week. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll fill the void with an Empathecary, something we haven't done for a while.
That sounds good. Can't wait for that. So, and you're going to bring back plenty of evidence and stories and stuff like that from.
I certainly hope so.
From the shops.
I certainly hope so.
From the shops at Gettysburg.
I'll bring home some pictures of me eating cookie dough. How's that? That's a lot of evidence right there.
That's all I need. All right. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.